right now. What's up, Chargers fans and Los Angeles alike? We are live at Brewery X here in Anaheim off La Palma, right near Angel Stadium and Honda Center, coming at you to talk about Chargers training camp. Day one, I'm joined by the great Dan Wolkenstein.
What's going on, everyone?
I am Ryan Dyrud. And, of course, Jake Hefner remotely coming to us live as well. Fellas, Dan, I'll start with you. It was a hot one, but it was a good one. How you feeling?
That was my first actual training camp that I got to go to. And honestly, dude, that was a blast. We got to see so many different people, got to see all different foot fans of the Bolt fam, got to see players. Derwin James was back. It was a little bit hot, but man, it was a lot of fun. Got a lot of takeaways we're going to talk about. Jake, how was it watching from your side? I know you got to see all the press conferences, everything, but like, how are you doing? How was day one training camp for you?
Man, it's always easy when you're behind a keyboard, but you want to get out there and feel that type of atmosphere. There's nothing like training camp. Dan, and for you, I'm glad you popped the training camp cherry. Glad you got a chance to get out there. Yeah, I'm sure it was. I'm sure it was. But no, I wish I was out there with you guys. I wish I was at Brewery X right now. Definitely planning on going here sometime within the next 2 weeks. But hey, some things you just got to pay the bills for and keep your ass in the chair at home.
Yeah. Well, we miss you. We wish you were here too. It's crazy. It felt so hot being down on that chain link fence, hands over the fence like a child waiting for something. I think it was only like 81 degrees, but it felt like 105.
It felt like the sun.
But the heat, I think, was coming from football finally being back. Chargers finally being back on the field. Justin Herbert out there with the mane grow. First of all, I don't get how this guy grows his hair so fast. That's a different story.
Yeah, we need to talk about that for a second.
But yeah, I guess first, Dan, let me just ask you, we'll get into some takeaways about, some position groups and different things like that. And we'll talk to Jake about some of the press conference stuff that he thought and takeaways from that. But just what was your thought initially of just football being back in the field and your biggest takeaway from just camp in general?
I mean, honestly, I think the biggest takeaway for me was just being able to see folks in pads again. Like, it has been so long since fans have been able to be in the stands and be able to actually participate. And so being out there, I mean, you and I were literally front row with the Bolt fam, saying hi to all of the famous folks who are on Bolt fam Twitter. And it was just fun to kind of have that atmosphere back. And we got to see a lot of the players up close and personal. Derwin James finally back in pads. The guy looks like he is happy as a clam. I mean, Justin Herbert looks as great as advertised. Kenneth Murray wearing the new K9. I mean, got to see a lot of the new rookies out there. But I think for me, it was refreshing to kind of just see the cadence of the whole training camp as a whole going fast under Brandon Staley. We talked to a few people that said this is just a different cadence with this coaching staff. And I think for me, this being the first one I've been to, I was like, wow, that was a very efficient one. And I guess that's not normal.
No. So typically training camp practices are about 2 hours long, sometimes a little over that. Day one today wrapped up in about an hour 12,
maybe
hour 13. I remember they're jotting on the field. I'm like, wait, are they done? Is that it? And so we won't say his name. We'll just say a team source made us know. And I think Jake, I think Brandon said it in or Coach Staley said it in his presser afterwards also, is he scripted a certain amount of plays, scripted a practice how he wanted it. And if they went through the script, they were done. They weren't going to go over. And if they, had some mess ups or like that, they would keep going. So I thought that was interesting that just shows the control that Staley has as a team, that he scripted out practice. Hour 12. I know some fans were bummed that drove hours to come down, but it's got to make you feel good from a team's perspective that they're taking care of business quick and often.
100%. And it was interesting to kind of see, because they were so efficient with the time, they got to spend more time giving autographs to all of the Bolt fam. I mean, we saw so many players out there giving autographs for probably 45 minutes. I mean, we saw Kenneth Murray, Chinna Nwosu, Derwin James, Justin Herbert, Austin Eckler, Rashawn Slater. I mean, so many people.
Joshua Kelly.
Don't
forget Jay Kelly.
Yeah. Yep. There's a ton of people out there. And it was cool to see things being done the right way and things happening for the right reasons. Jake, for you, looking at it from a side, whether it's on Twitter, seeing things kind of live, what were kind of the takeaways that you had for watching it from afar?
I mean, yeah, to Ryan's point that he was making about the time of the overall practice today. So 75 minutes is what it came out to be, is what I heard. And like you had mentioned in Staley's press conference, he basically said that whole reasoning for cutting the practice down was actually by design. So I'm not sure if it was for a day one that he wanted to kind of gauge where everybody was at, but moving forward, I guess what he wants to get kind of the attitude to say if practices are that short moving forward, he wants to get the guys to be in an attitude and a mindset to say, no, coach, we can go longer than this. Like, we can be out here doing more. Even if this is what it's scripted to, let's go more, let's do more. So I think it's one of these, type of like psychology type of ways of just getting the pulse on the team where they're at day one. Obviously, everybody coming back for the first time since minicamp and OTAs and being in this type of atmosphere again. So it's an interesting thing because, traditionally you don't see it like this. And for some people, I'm sure like you guys, were questions like, wait, that's it? What the hell's going on here? But yeah, it just sounds like this is another thing for the method to the madness that is Brandon Staley.
Let me ask you, Jake, your opinion. My buddy Coach, I'm going to put this on the screen. Not sure I feel that interesting for sure, because it's definitely a different tactic to go into, especially here we are still in July, a month away, and you think you want to get as many reps as possible, especially with the new coaching staff, new schemes, all that. There's part of me that loves it because he is creating like a hunger that he wants for these players. But there's part of me that's like, well, these guys need reps. But that's, I think, the old mentality almost of the NFL that we get ingrained of just like reps, when a lot of it's off the field nowadays. So Jake, how do you feel that do you like the fact that he did that, or do you wish they were out there for the full 2 hours as long as they could possibly be taking as many reps as possible?
Yeah, I mean, I think that normally that's what I would like to see. I mean, you guys were there. I didn't read anything about him running the dual practice fields with having, like the ones and the twos on one field and the threes on the other competing against each other, unless I heard something or saw something different. Did you guys see anything like that? Because if that's the case, much like he did it in OTAs, then I may be able to understand this mythology.
Yeah, I mean, they definitely had both fields being worked on in terms of like actual plays and practices. I think we saw that on one field, but we saw a bunch of stretches and drills and things going on the second field. And it's one of those things that I kind of think about too. You think about like working smart versus working hard. And this Chargers team, I think so long was, you can tell they always were trying really hard, but it wasn't necessarily the smartest way to do it. I would rather see this team work smart, hour and 15 minutes, get in, get out, don't screw anything up, move on to the next day. Like, I think they got in enough that they wanted to get done, and they're good. They'll take that as a win and move on. And I think that was something for me I wasn't necessarily expecting, but then afterwards I was kind of grateful for it. I mean, it's less opportunity for folks to get injured, less opportunity for folks to do something stupid. Like, I'm cool with it. I'm
sure my co-host Frosty Rucker is ready to put the pads back on at the ripe age of 39, saying, hour and 15-minute practice, get me out there, coach. I can deal with that. Yeah. I retired because of the 3-hour two-a-days I had to go through.
Yeah, where were these 15 minutes ago?
Yeah.
Where were these 15 years ago?
Yeah. But overall, the fan base was great. I thought they had a really good turnout for day one. I don't know the numbers on it yet, but the stands were pretty packed. The front line was like 5 or so deep. Oh
yeah. You were not getting into the front row if you were not there within 10 minutes of it opening.
Yeah. Real quick before we get into some takeaways, tell us about how you got the VIP experience somehow.
Yeah, what was that about?
Getting in there nice and early.
I don't know, but somehow.
I'm gonna put my arm over here.
That's okay.
It's okay.
We're getting cozy.
Yeah.
No, so weirdly, I still had my VIP lanyard from when I was like going to SoFi for the original SoFi opening for all the Bolt fan for season ticket holders. And I just saw a sign that said for VIP, and I had the VIP lanyard on my car, and so I was like, "Oh, is that me? I don't know." So I just pulled in, and I was apparently a VIP, and it was great. And it was
fake
really
it
cool
till you make it, Dan Wolkenstein.
And it wasn't even a fake it till you make it. I literally thought, I was like, I guess I'm VIP. I don't know how this works. And then I'm like, oh, this is training camp. In my defense, I totally was like, I think, and I held the lanyard up with a question mark, and that was basically it. But honestly, it was cool getting in and just kind of seeing everything start off. Like, this is a brand new season, brand new everything. Mm-hmm. And like, it's a weird time. Like, COVID's still potentially an issue. Like, there's still stuff ramping up. Everyone's still super worried and anxious, and everything is big on health. But just to kind of see like the energy from people that are just excited to see football live again, I think that was like what really got me energized. And you could see it with the staff that was there at training camp. Like, everyone there was just excited and welcoming to all the fans. And it was cool seeing all the fans coming in at once. And it was like, oh boy, storm's coming. Here they come. Like, hold on to your britches, folks.
And as soon as a player would get near the chain link fence, it was like an ant farm. Just everyone swarm in.
Yep.
I want to address one of these questions here from let me see where it is. From Stephen Wilshire, said, heard the offense looked bad. You can put it up there, Dan, if you want. Before we get into just true takeaways, and Jake, sorry, you won't probably be able to comment too much, or maybe you can. I don't know if you had an eagle eye view from somewhere that we don't know about.
Inside sources.
Yeah, inside sources, which was probably us too, but maybe some other ones. I'll tell you, did you think the offense looked bad?
No.
I don't know who said that, but
no, I did not think the offense looked bad. I mean, obviously, I think there was some rust involved when you haven't played football in like 6 months. Yeah. But no, if I had a takeaway, it would not be that the offense looked bad. There were certainly other parts of the game, which I'm sure we'll talk about, that I think could use some more help.
Yeah, some concerns.
But no, the offense looked fine, especially the ones. I saw some great grabs from some of the receivers, and I was like, woof. No, I personally didn't think the offense looked bad, but we were there live, so what do we know?
Yeah, it's hard to quantify at training camp with no pads on who looks better, offense or defense. I would say the defense, just from a complete overview, the defense was everywhere. Mm-hmm. Looked super fast, plugging holes, but it's all like you're playing touch basically. So they would get in there for a sack, and then Justin Herbert would complete a 4-yard pass. The crowd would go nuts, but it's like, well, it was actually a sack. Like, that wouldn't have actually happened.
And you mentioned this earlier when we were watching it. We're like, those defensive players are like, that would have been a sack and interception, but here we are.
I know. I can't wait to have one of them on. Like, how frustrating is it for you guys to be at training camp and hear the fans blow up on a big offensive play when in reality you guys got a sack, a holding call, and probably a pass interference, but it goes to the offense. But no, the offense did not look bad. I mean, they completed passes. Justin Herbert looked good. The receivers, I thought, looked really solid. Josh Palmer, which we're going to talk about the receivers here in a minute. Josh Palmer, I thought, looked really good for the rookies. The running backs was in a very heavy rotation, but I thought they looked pretty solid.
A lot of them.
Yeah. So yeah, to answer your question, I don't think the offense looked bad by any means, especially for day one of camp.
No, but if we do want to talk about a position or a group that I think everyone knows is an issue for this Chargers team that needs to get fixed, it is special teams. And I think one of the areas that I think it was pretty obvious for most of the folks watching too was how much effort they were putting into like fixing special teams. And you could see why they need to put a lot of effort into it. And they're still a long ways away. We saw many folks covering punts and not catching them properly. We saw a lot of miscues there. But like, that's a good thing to happen now. I'd rather happen now than in the season. But there were a few things in special teams land. I think both you and me, Ryan, were kind of like, I don't know how I feel about this, or I really like this.
Yeah, definitely some uneasiness there. Jake, just to get you in the conversation, from your pre-season evaluations, let me ask you this. Who did you kind of view as the potential return guy for the Chargers? And then we can comment on who is actually going to be based on day one of camp. But who, from what you've thought about, or maybe fans you've talked to, who do you kind of want to see as be the return guy? And then we'll counter with the reality.
I mean, how long have the Chargers been looking for a legitimate, steady return man that actually produces on a consistent week in and week out basis? I'm not putting my thumb on anybody. To me, it's just like, hey, at this point, whoever ends up winning the job, for a certain period of time last year, we had Desmond King do it. We had Nasir Adderley doing it some parts of the time. Joe Reed was doing kickoffs part of the time. I mean, we just couldn't find really a legitimate return guy that could stick and be consistent. And I heard from the reports today, I heard that Guyton was dropping a few of the returns. I heard they had Tyron Johnson and Austin Prohl back there testing them out the return spot, and they looked better. But, I mean, you're going to have to find something. Find somebody that's a step up as it relates to the return spot, because if we're talking about the primary return specialist, that could be a spot that's very much up for grabs right now.
Let me say this, Dan, and then I want you to jump in. We can blame coaching all we want for woes on special teams.
True.
But you cannot blame the coach if you can't catch the punt. That's on the guy. That's on the player.
100%.
And we saw some of that today. I'll throw it over to you, though, and then I'll comment.
We definitely saw a lot of drops, and it was interesting. And it's hard to, I guess, express this verbally, but there were some players that you watch catch the football or attempt to catch the football, and you didn't feel very comfortable. And then there were other players who you're like, that just looks good. It looks natural, fitting. And one of the players, I think Ryan and I both were like, I think this is going to be the guy. And Jake, you and I talked about this on our kind of wide receiver breakdown episode. We were talking about like who could make the team, who won't make the team. Austin Proehl, if he makes the team, it has to be on special teams. And I don't know about you, Ryan, but I think for me, like, he was probably one of the day one winners of camp, of just like showing his value, not just as a receiver, but he looked awfully comfortable returning punts. I didn't see very many that he muffed, if any, maybe one. But as a whole, I think he was probably a day one winner for me.
If you can win a job on a team in day one of training camp, Austin Proehl did that, because did not muff a single punt. Just like you said, just looked comfortable catching them. A guy that so many times when you watch Charger games, like your heart sinks as that ball's in the air. And you're like, oh boy, here we go. Are they going to catch it? Are they going to just let it go? Is it going to go out of bounds? What's going to happen? And when he was back there, it felt confident. When it was Guyton, when it was Tyron Johnson, when it was KJ Hill, the other guys, it didn't feel that way. But Proehl just looks, and I'm not saying this because I was good by any means, but I fielded punts in high school, and so I know kind of the meander you go through, the protocol you go through when you're in the vision looking for it. And you can tell when guys just aren't comfortable when they're trying to find it in the air. You can tell right away.
I mean, there's a lot
that
of pressure
guy's not
in
comfortable.
that.
Oh yeah, totally. It's not easy. It's not easy by any means. But you can tell a guy like that guy is not comfortable fielding punts. That guy is. Austin Proehl was comfortable fielding punts. To me, right now, he is your punt returner on this Chargers team. Again, we have 3 weeks of camp. That can change. But yeah, you're absolutely right. He was the biggest winner by far in day one.
Were you surprised that Joe Reed was not fielding punts?
I was very surprised. And I know I tweeted out that he was not one in the group. And one of our guys at LAFB, Tyler, actually commented that, he's never fielded punts in college, didn't field any punts in the pros last year. But I think for a guy with his skill set and a guy that is clawing to be on this team, you got to get him involved in any way possible. And, if you're a talented athletic receiver, you should be able to field punts. So I was surprised he wasn't back there, at least attempting to get his name out there. And I know he did kick returns. But yeah, I was definitely surprised.
Jake, I don't know if you saw it, but there was a great catch that Joe Reed made on the left sideline about halfway through practice. Yeah. That got everyone like, woo.
Yes.
Yeah.
And he was kind of he's just one of those gamers where you just want to get him the ball. What did you see out of Joe Reed today, if any, from when you're looking at from your vantage point, Jake?
That was the only highlight that I ended up catching, was when Stick threw him that pass. So that was all I was able to gauge from that was all I was able to gauge from the laptop at home today in the office. So definitely don't ask me, because I wasn't there.
Let me ask you this, and we'll pivot to Easton Stick for all those stick stands out there. For all those stick stands out there. And I wouldn't call myself a stick stand, but I do love me some Easton Stick. I love him at North Dakota State. I used an Easton hockey stick when I played hockey. I love the guy. 3-time captain, 3-time national champion. We can go on and on and on. I'm not here saying he should be starting over anybody else in the Chargers. But anyway, I thought he had a fairly good day. Yep. Slinging it good, spiraling good. That pass was good. I brought this up to Jake when we were standing at the chain link fence. I like when I keep calling it the chain link fence. I don't know.
My name is Dan.
Did I say Jake?
You did. It's okay.
I was talking to Dan.
Here we are, live TV.
Here we go. A couple beers at Brewery X. Talking to Dan at the chain link fence at Chargers camp. I was like, you know what? With Joe Lombardi here now as the Chargers offensive coordinator, we know what Taysom Hill did in New Orleans. I'm not necessarily a diehard proponent for that offensive system. When Drew Brees was on these rolls and all of a sudden they'd pull him out and bring Taysom Hill in out of nowhere, I never really got that logic. But when you need to change a pace, when you want to throw a little wrinkle in the offense, I mean, everyone can say, yeah, they scored touchdowns with Taysom Hill. Easton Stick, very athletic. I think he has a better arm than Taysom Hill. Why not? And here we are the first day of camp, so maybe they're actually trying to bring this into the playbook, but why not include Easton Stick in some of these Taysom Hill-like plays on the Chargers? Jake, you have a funny face. Let me know your thoughts on that.
I mean, I'm not saying it's impossible, and you make some great points there, just given what Joe Lombardi did while he was with the Saints and being like a guy with Taysom Hill. And you can easily connect those dots when you look at the tools that Easton Stick brings to the table, especially when it comes to athleticism. I mean, I think it was hit the first year he was with the team in preseason. I think he break off like a 50-yard run in the preseason game that just got everybody ballistic. So he's got the capability of having the wheels and making plays like that. But outside of being the any type of gadget type of run player like that, I really don't see him fitting completely into the same Taysom Hill mold. But it is an interesting thought.
Because let me say this, Jake, and so we've many times, I'm not saying you particularly, but I know I have, and many of Bolt Media and all this, we like making comparisons. So a lot of us are comparing, okay, Austin Eckler can now be the Alvin Kamara of the Chargers offense, and we look at Brandon Staley, and okay, Derwin James can be the Jalen Ramsey, and so we're comparing all these.
Michael Thomas and Mike Williams.
Yeah, so like these players can be this on what they did in offenses. I don't see why we're not talking about Easton Stick being that for the Chargers, like Taysom Hill, when they have same body types, same athletic abilities. And like I said, I think Easton Stick has a lot better throwing ability than Taysom Hill does.
Well, I will say, I think the biggest reason why we're probably not seeing that is as good as Easton Stick is and athletic as he is, like Drew Brees is athletic, but he's not Justin Herbert. And like Justin Herbert can do a lot more things
There's a good point
that Drew Brees can do. And I honestly don't know if there's anything that I would rather have Easton Stick do than Justin Herbert. Like, I don't know if there's anything he could do that's better than Justin Herbert.
Yeah.
Whereas with Drew Brees and Taysom Hill, like, there were a lot of things that Drew Brees just couldn't do as good as Taysom Hill. And Taysom Hill brought something to the table.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I also don't want to see my star quarterback trying to just do like, quarterback sneak.
Yeah,
runs.
I don't want designed runs for Justin Herbert. So that's, I think, where Easton Stick can come in, is bringing the third string guy for those designed where you need 3-4 yards. Maybe you break a big one. Who knows?
Yep.
I don't want Herbert doing those.
No, for sure. And Jake, you probably got to see a lot of like the post game interviews and stuff, but one of the things that was pretty palpable being at training camp was how excited everyone was to see all these players. But like specifically, I think the two players that people were most excited to see was Justin Herbert, who I believe was the first one out there. And then when folks finally saw their first glimpse of Derwin James back on the field. Jake, how was his press conference post practice? Because I know, because people were like worried about, I mean, myself included, like, should he even be practicing? Let's just wait until the season. Like, I think he looked pretty good. I mean, he looked fast. He didn't look like he was taking anything off. He was going 100%. Did he say anything in particular during kind of the post camp press conference?
I mean, he was just in a nutshell of all of his comments, he was just really hyped up to be back. He had quotes saying that he's, in terms of, someone had asked him as far as his role on the defense, and he had talked about virtually playing everywhere. I think he had said at one point that he was going to play nose guard at one point. So he wanted to play every position.
Watch out,
defense.
Let's not.
He wanted to play every position in defense. So that doesn't give you an idea of how happy he is to be back. He went on to talk about his mental strength personally, just as an individual, as a team. They want to be the best defense in the NFL, with that, which obviously, this is the time of the year where every team is 0-0. So if your mentality isn't to be the best, then what are you doing here? So I like that kind of swag, and truth be told, every player should have that type of attitude. But he said great things about his health. Was talking about that he was 100% healthy, and overall, again, he was just hyped up to be back in that practice field and going through these drills.
Did anyone ask him if he was going to be on like a snap count during camp, if there was going to be any restrictions on him, or was that not brought up at all?
I don't think that was brought up at all. I think if maybe you saw him, I think maybe if he wasn't completely healthy by the time that the OTAs and the mini camps were going on, but thankfully when that news broke that he was fully healthy to return to those full type of practices, I think it could have been a different story. But for the fact that he has been fully healthy since mini camps and OTAs have gotten underway, I don't think they have any thought process on slowing him down.
Yeah. Sorry, Dan, real quick. What Chargers fans should be refreshed about, if Brandon Staley takes principles from what the Rams do, they will be very limited in reps. They will not play any preseason games. The starters, that is.
Please don't.
So if Staley takes what he did with the Rams, no starter will play a preseason game. And they will have limited reps. It's much more mental, much more walkthrough, much more X's and O's. This is where you need to be. This is what you're going to do. But we don't need to do it necessarily full go on the field, because we want you healthy come November, December, January. We don't want you getting hurt in freaking August.
The risk in the preseason is not worth it.
No.
It's just not worth it. And it was wild seeing Derwin James back on the field and like being able to just see the presence that he brings. I mean, you notice him immediately. He is the fastest player on the defense, and I don't even think it's close.
Yeah.
And you watch him compared to the other folks out of his position. Like, Nazir Adderley is not slow. Mark Webb is not slow. Alohi Gilman, like, they're slower, but they're not slow. And he just makes them look like they're crawling. Derwin
And he's
James,
just huge too.
he's also a freak. And so watching him, you see him go up against like the Mike Williams, you see him go up against Keenan Allen, you see him go up against like there's one against like Donald Palmer. I'm like, how does he even do this?
Yeah.
And it's just you see how excited he is to play and how excited the fans are to see him back on the field finally. And I know everyone's kind of like crossing their fingers, and I'm sure some part of him also is doing that, but at the same time, like he's a football player and he's got to just like let it go and let it rip and see what happens. So I think seeing him back healthy was probably my favorite part of training camp. But one of the things that I was really interested in, we talked to Chris Harry on a previous episode, was the position battle at wide receiver and like how deep, and Jake was talking about like how stacked at talent the wide receiver is in terms of depth.
Yeah. And
seeing their wide receivers out there today, I mean, you can go down the list, but like Jason Moore is like much bigger than I was expecting him to be in person. But Josh Palmer, same thing. Mike Williams, huge dude, new haircut. Keenan Allen looks amazing. KJ Hill, crisp. Joe, like there's so many guys. You keep going down the list, and it's unfortunate, but at least 2, probably 3 of these guys are not going to make the team. And so you're looking at like an Austin Prohl, a KJ Hill, a Joe Reed, and that's where special teams become so important. But just seeing the wide receivers like battle it out, like I knew there's going to be a lot of emotions on that, and we'll probably see that throughout training camp.
Well, I don't think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think we saw a single dropped ball out there.
I didn't see one.
I don't think we saw a single drop ball out there. Obviously, Keenan Allen and Mike Williams are locks, but even after them, any one of those guys I think is good enough to make this squad, which tells you that they're going to be in the NFL. They're going to be picked up by other teams. And I don't think from this day one where I'm saying this guy has an edge up over this guy. Obviously, Josh Palmer is probably a lock too, being a 3rd round pick, and he looked very good. Had 2 very good completions right over the middle in traffic, wearing the short like bikini shorts almost, showing off the thighs and quads. But they all looked good. And yeah, Jason Moore, you're right. It looks huge in person. Like his actual like body and build is so much bigger than what you see on TV. And so this is a very good group that we've all talked about a lot this offseason. We've all kind of tried to figure out who's going to be the cut, who's like going to be the ones that make it. And yeah, we still don't know, but I think we should still feel very good that whatever 5 or 6 they keep, this is a really good unit, maybe considered top 5, top 10 unit as a whole in the NFL.
And Jake, I'll ask you this, because I really think it just depends on what Joe Lombardi and Brandon Staley want as like the flavor profile of their wide receivers, because there's different wide receiver dynamics and like archetypes on this team. And so like, do you need on the bottom half of your wide receiver roster, like, do you need that like gadgetry, or do you want like the 6'5", 6'6", like go up and get it guy? And so Jake, I guess I'm curious from your perspective, like, what do you think the bottom of the roster for wide receivers, like what is that archetype that Staley will probably look towards keeping?
I mean, Dan, it's like what you and I had spoken about when we were breaking down the wide receiver group. You know, you do have a couple guys that can do the same things here. I mean, you really do. You look at, I mean, that's going to be an interesting battle between Guyton and Tyron Johnson, because really I think that they can do the same thing. I think Guyton has the edge on him because traditionally what he showed, he has the better hands. To me, Josh Palmer is a little bit more versatile in the middle as far as being able to play on the outside, being able to play in the slot. Again, great route running, can run the full tree, has fantastic hands. Now you look below that. Now you have Joe Reed, who is an extremely versatile weapon that you could use at wide receiver, at running back, doing end-around type of plays, gadgetry, whichever you want to call it. And then you have KJ Hill, who really just has made his mark most notably in the slot position, not so much in his pro career yet, but that's what he did at Ohio State. So I think that from the standpoint of looking at when you're evaluating these guys, if you're the coaching staff, give me some guys that can do a lot of different things, which gives me the ability to be more creative in the offense that I put out there, which in turn should give us the better chance of being productive against defenses.
Ryan, I was going to ask you this. So Jake and I talked about this before, but just looking at today, which is kind of an interesting microcosm, I think of the following 3 players, one of them I think is going to make this team. I think it's Austin Prohl, Jason Moore, and KJ Hill. If it was me today, I don't know how I'm not keeping Austin Prohl, just because of like the versatility. But I can see reasons for all 3 of them. But of those 3, who, as of today, who do you see the Chargers keeping?
I mean, from a receiver standpoint, you know, Moore probably gives you a little more size and length and options. Yeah, exactly. But from a pure what you need on this team and how much Moore would play at wide receiver 6 or whatever he would be. Austin Proehl is 1,150% the guy. It's a random number I picked, but he is the guy because of what we saw in the return game, what we saw. And it's one day of camp. They're not even fully padded up. They're wearing shorts, t-shirts, and helmets.
Some hoodies, but no muffed punts, looked comfortable tracking the ball. And that was enough for me to say, as of now, Austin Proehl is making the team regardless. So unless he has a huge fall down later on, it's a great question, but it's Austin Proehl. And he can do stuff in the slot. I mean, he can be, you mentioned, kind of reminds you of like a Julian Edelman or Wes Welker, a guy like that. And that's just, the size there and maybe the speed, maybe the whiteness. I don't know, but he's a guy that can fill punts, and that's what this Charger team needs. They need a guy that can go out there and feel confident that he's going to catch the ball every time, regardless if you're getting 20+ yards per return. We just want a guy that doesn't fumble the ball and give it back to the other team. So, and today he showed that. I mean, it is interesting, and I wonder, like, we look at a lot of the players, and there was a few where they're either bigger or smaller than you think of when you see them in person. And like, I think Austin Proehl was a little bit smaller than I was expecting him to be. Austin Eckler, kind of the same thing. Donald Parham, huge. Jason Moore, huge. Matt Filer, also massive. The guy's like probably the biggest offensive line on the team.
Yeah, would not have expected that.
No.
Filer towered over all of them. Him and Brian Bulaga, too, was way bigger than I thought. Iowa.
Yep. Mark Webb, surprisingly, was super tall. Mike Davis, much taller in person. So there's a lot of athletes on this team. And I looked over at Ryan when we were looking at the tight end group, and I was like, we better see a ton more goal line fades to Donald Parham, because that is just a big man. I think he's the tallest person on this team by far. I don't know anybody in the league that's taller than him. What is he, 6'9"?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, and you have him and Jared Cook, who is one of the best red zone tight ends. I mean, say what you want with Jared Cook as a tight end overall. In the red zone, he's been dominant the last 2-3 seasons. 17 touchdowns in the last 2 years. So you have him and you have Donald Parham. There should be some fun things they can do in the red zone.
Jake, did you hear about at the end of training camp when all the players were doing all the autographs, and apparently Justin Herbert didn't know about like the safety protocols of how close
I'm sure he knew. He
Yes.
probably just didn't care. Yeah. QB1, baby.
That's
QB1.
true. That's true. And it was funny. So from our vantage point, Jake, we're sitting there from the top. It was like really warm. So we were just going to go back and kind of like sit in the shade. And then from super far back, we see Justin Herbert starting to walk by. And Ryan and I are both like, well, here we go. And like, it was like a swarm of bees just flocking, and the place went ballistic. And he started signing autographs for probably, 15, 20 minutes.
Yeah.
And then just says, screw it, and just go give everyone high fives on the way out. And I think later in the press conference, he was like, oh, I didn't know about the whatever. No, but like, honestly, like there are certain fines that are worth it.
Oh, yeah.
And that's probably one. I'm sure every player on the team would pitch in to pay for it for him anyways.
Yeah. it was so good for the fan base. And so for those that don't know that are listening, there's this protocol. I don't know the exact rules of it, but basically the players cannot come in contact with fans. So when they were doing autographs, either like a media or a PR person would go grab stuff, or as you saw from many videos, fans were just chucking crap at them to like sign. Because the players, they just didn't want to, they didn't want to come in contact with fans just in case for anything. So after doing that for 20 or so minutes, then Herbert, as he's leaving, just all of a sudden walks to the fence after this whole time, and then just down the line, high fives, thank you, like chatting to people. Honestly, it was a super cool moment, just seeing like he's embracing the fact that he is QB1, QB2 in Los Angeles, however you feel about Matthew Stafford versus Justin Herbert, but for sure QB1 in like Orange County, the Chargers. All this love for Phillip Rivers, which will never die, as it should never in the Chargers organization. But we now have a quarterback that people are embracing just as much as Phillip Rivers. And Herbert has owned that. And he said, I'm going to just show respect to my fans and get out there. And, if it's a whatever, 100,000, 200,000, I'm going to be a $40 million man here soon enough. I think I'll be okay.
I think I can make it. Jake, so a bunch of stuff happened day one. What storylines do you think came out of day one heading into day two in the rest of training camp that you're looking forward to?
I mean, kind of even going back to when we first came on the show and answering the first question, we're talking about people saying that the offense looked bad today. I don't think that, to piggyback it off that, I think the defense won the day. It doesn't necessarily mean that the offense looked bad, but the defense won today. And that's what you like to see. And personally, when you look at the talent that's spread out throughout the offense at every skill position, whether we're talking wide receiver, tight end, and even the running back right now, and when you know who you have under center, you know that group is going to get the job done, and they're going to come back tomorrow and with the intention of getting some back on the defense. But to have this defensive group back, to see the return of Derwin James, to see Michael Davis breaking up a nice pass along the sidelines, just being that type of aggressive unit on day one, I think is definitely something to see, because if you can go off against the offense with all of these weapons, that's only going to make you better for when you're going up against opposing offenses. So what's that old adage? Iron sharpens iron type deal. So yeah, it was the defense winning the day, getting off on the right foot and having their type of productive moments. And it was great to see.
Well, let's be real, Jake, with Brandon Staley being hired as the coach and what he did for the Rams as, defensive coordinator. If he came in and the defense struggled, again, it takes time, but there would be concern like, oh, wow, this offense is with a brand new offensive line, with a brand new offensive scheme, is whooping up on the defense when we hired a defensive-minded coach on the number one defense.
You take it personal.
There would be concerns. So it's good that the defense looked good. The defense should win every day, and that is good for this Chargers team because it's only going to make the offense better, like you said, Jake. And then you want to be the best defense in the NFL, and if the offense can even counteract that to an extent, they're going to be fantastic.
And I was just actually thinking about that as you were talking about offense versus defense. Like I was thinking prior to this season, like you look at how good Justin Herbert was, and you look at Keenan Allen, the stars on offense, and the offensive line rebuild. Like you would think that people are going to rely on the offense to kind of win games for them. But do you think that I'll ask both of you guys, should the defense carry this team or should it be offense? I mean, everyone wants to say it's balanced, but in the end of the day, one side's going to carry the other more than the other. Should the offense be the one carrying it, or should we rely on Staley and his scheme to bring us home?
Jake, you want to go first?
I mean, it would be nice to see more out of the defense, because we could talk about a number of different games that the Chargers lost at the end of the games because of poor coaching decisions. It felt like we had to make a comeback just to get back into the game. We started off too slow. I would love for the defense to take the reins for a number of different weeks where you can say, okay, Justin Herbert has gone out and done his job. Now go out and stop somebody. Go out and get a 3-and-out. Go out and prevent that last scoring drive from the opposing team. I would love to see the confidence built back up in this defense, and from us as fans, built up confidence back up in them. So yeah, I would love to see the defense take a little bit more control. We already know that Herbert, with the offensive line that he had this year and the coaching staff that he had last year, if he can do that, if he can have that type of rookie of the year like production, and now you switch with this coaching staff and with a revamped offensive line and a couple more bodies at the skill positions, you know that you can get production out of that. I want to rely more on the defense to say, we're up 7, but we're confident enough in our defense, they're going to get a stop and we're going to win this game.
Jake, I feel like on so many shows nowadays, each person needs to take a side to argue. But no, I unequivocally absolutely agree. The defense should be the focal point of this team. You brought in Brandon Staley as your head coach to say, hey, our defense was good for one half. We have talent, and they fall apart in the second. Fix that. He's going to come in and fix that. You have the pieces in place when health is obviously there, which we're going to see them not practice as vigorously and do things where they're going to prioritize health throughout the season. And then the offense can now come along slowly because, as I mentioned before, whole new offensive line, whole new offensive scheme, some new draft picks on receiver and running back and all this. It's going to take some time to get those ducks in a row and really get productive at it. And with the offense they're going to run with Joe Lombardi, they want to run a more efficient offense. Yes, they're going to have big plays and stuff they're going to do to blow the game open, but efficiency is the biggest thing in the offensive scheme they want to run. But efficiency doesn't happen overnight. It's going to take time. Whereas defense, that's what this team is going to be about, where if they can just make adjustments at halftime, say it's a 20-7 game at half, Chargers losing. Well, guess what? That defense is going to clamp down in the second half. That gives the offense time to adjust through the first half, adjust in the third quarter, and then really see Justin Herbert shine in the fourth quarter and win this game 28-20 or 35-24 or something like that, which I think we're going to see a lot more of that this year than we're going to see the latter of it being 27 like last year and losing 35-28. So the defense unequivocally should be the face of this team for this year. Not saying that's going to be the future with Justin Herbert. For this year, though, it's the defense.
Jake, one of the things I don't know if it came through, whether it was on Twitter or watching it live, but from the sidelines, it looked like the defense was definitely a little bit more. I mean, he uses her multiple all the time, but like you saw folks getting their hands up. You saw batted balls. You saw folks coming off the edge. I saw like Chenowosу came off as like a linebacker who was blitzing, but he was actually looking like he was in coverage. All of a sudden, he was back at the quarterback. I was like, oh my goodness, I haven't seen this in
some disguises out there.
Wow, I didn't know that was coming. That's amazing.
Yeah.
So it was cool. It was amazing to see just the team being as advertised. Like Brandon Staley came in because he's an innovative coach, because he's someone that can kind of help bring this team to the next level and not just be like the last generation of talent from a coaching perspective. And it's nice to actually see that come to fruition. Granted, it's just one day, but being able to see that progression and being able to see it translate on the field, I think is good things to come for the team.
What did you guys think? What did you guys think in terms of the defense goes? Brandon Faison, I know it's just day one, but Dan, we were just talking about him last night. He's basically getting the reps across from Michael Davis in the starting defense, and this is ahead of Asante Samuel. Maybe a little bit surprising to some, but we talked about how Brandon Staley had praised what he and liked what he saw from Brandon Faison up until this point, even going back to mini camps and OTAs. Remember, they ended up cutting him for a short period of time. This coaching staff ended up bringing him back. I think it was just prior to free agency. Yeah, what did you make of that as far as just the reps that he was getting?
I mean, personally, you and I talked about it, and I'm curious what your thoughts are too, Ryan. But like when we were talking about it, Brandon Staley talked about how much he liked like the physical traits that Faison brought. And a lot of the issues Faison had were a lot of like mental mistakes. And I think that's where Brandon Staley and Ronaldo Hill, like that's their forte. That's what they can actually fix. And so if they have someone that can have the physical traits and skill sets that they want, I would think that they can help fix and bring up the other stuff that might be lacking. Asante Samuel, as much as we all love him and think he's going to be a great player, he's also a rookie. And it's really hard for cornerbacks to be impactful that early. So am I surprised that Faison is getting the starting, maybe not starting reps, but like cornerback 2 reps on the first day of training camp? Not at all. I mean, Asante Samuel Jr. literally has never done it before in the NFL. So I think it's a long progress. We got a long way to go. But folks need to get comfortable with the fact that Faison is going to have a bigger impact on this team than you might think that you might be comfortable with. But honestly, I'm cool with it. We talked about it when we were talking about like the cornerback position, and I think he has the potential to really outgrow his reputation.
Yeah, I mean, physical traits aren't coachable. Mental traits are. So the fact that he has the physical tools that Staley and Ronaldo Hill like tells you they want to see what he can bring, see if he can fix those mental mistakes, see if he can, this is the time to make mistakes. And so he can go out there and show his physical prowess and make those mistakes. And if they continue to happen, then he will not be on the field on Sundays. But they want to see that being the incumbent, given the opportunity to seize the spot while Asante Samuel Jr. learns the system, learns being a pro, learns all this. And, I always talk about Brandon Staley and the Rams, but, you have to. That's what we've always seen him as, being the Rams defensive coordinator. But Jordan Fuller was not announced as the day one starter on the first day of training camp, but he earned it through camp and became the day one starter because of how well he played in camp. And so for those that are worried, like, wow, Asante Samuel is not the starter coming in. Well, that's why you have 3 weeks of training camp, so you can prove yourself. And if he doesn't get it, that's not a bad thing. That means Brandon's face-off played his ass off and did some really good things. Brandon Faison, I think. But anyway.
Faison played his face off.
Yeah, it's a lot to say. Brandon Faison played very well in training camp and earned it. And Asante Samuel Jr., who's going to be the future of the secondary, now just has more time to progress, and then he'll get involved in nickel. And like we said, he's going to play all over the field. He's going to play some safety. I guarantee you we'll see him in safety sets. So yeah, I think it's a good thing seeing Faison right there.
And that being said, Asante Samuel Jr. is quick.
Fluid.
You see him so much on the field, even though he may not have been like CB2 technically. Like you immediately see how fast he is on the field. I mean, the guy's like a cat, and he might be raw, and I'm sure he's wise beyond his years when it comes to the position, but he's still a rookie. But like the traits are there, and I think as long as you have the coaching staff that can bring out the best in them, I'm not worried at all. And honestly, Faison he has the physical traits, and if coaching staff can get it out of him, I'm all for it. Give me the cornerback battles.
And last thing I'll say about that is, I know we all love Asante Samuel Jr. and we know what he can bring. I did a film study and fell in love with what he did at Florida State, his versatility and all that. But if your second round pick is your CB2 on the day one of camp, that's more concerning about your depth at the cornerback
Very
position.
good point.
So let's just say what it is. We want him to grow into the starter, not be forced to be the starter because the depth and talent is so bad behind him.
Jake, are you surprised that it would be him and not Chris Harris Jr.? I know we talk about Chris Harris Jr. being kind of like a positionless player, more in the middle of the field, the slot, but would you have thought that it would have been Chris Harris instead of Faison?
No, I wasn't surprised by that because, I mean, if everything that we've been led to believe that Brandon Staley is going to put players in the position to succeed, then if that's the case, then he needs to keep Chris Harris in the slot. That's where he dominates. That's where he has made his reputation in the NFL, and that's where he's going to thrive. One question that I wanted to ask about Ryan, just because I know he knows this from covering the Rams and obviously saw what Staley did with that defense last year. You know, again, just going back to some people may be surprised that Faison got this opportunity today. Again, it's day one of camp. Doesn't mean that it's going to remain this way. But Dan, you mentioned the mental mistakes that Brandon Faison has to overcome. What does that do? I honestly think it's a little bit of a killing two birds with one stone in terms of a development aspect, because now you're giving a guy who has historically struggled with this team, albeit in a reserve role. And now you as a coach are showing enough confidence in him to say, day one of camp, you're going to be in this starting rotation. You're going to be out there across from Michael Davis. And now, again, as a coach, taking that developmental aspect, having your young future of this team in the secondary in Asante Samuel Jr. learn, get up to speed, first training camp, and let him develop in that type of fashion. So I think it's a great thing if you're thinking about it from a coaching development standpoint.
Oh, 100%. Well, just look at his track record, right? Just from last season. And we can get into the Broncos and Bears if you really want to, but just from last season, guys that I've talked about a lot on my show, I don't know if you guys have, but Troy Hill and Darius Williams were not household names by any means on the Rams. Troy Hill had been on the Rams, was basically a depth piece, never got on the field. Darius Williams was undrafted, cut by the Ravens, and then picked up by the Rams, and the coaching staff kind of fell in love with him, but we never really saw him. All of a sudden last year, these guys are household names. Darius Williams gets a first-round tender. Troy Hill signs a huge contract with the Browns.
Johnson's getting paid.
Yeah, John Johnson, who was a more household name, but yeah, he got paid and was a top 10 safety. So I think when Brandon Staley as a coach, Ronaldo Hill as a coach, tells Brandon Faison, hey, I believe in your athletic ability. Let us coach you on how to fix what you've done wrong. Look at our track record. I'm not saying they're saying that, but us as fans and us as media guys are saying that. Look at his track record. Guy knows what he's talking about. And if you have the physical tools to do it, who's to say Faison's not going to be a Pro Bowler next year?
And it should say something not just to like fans and people covering the team, but also to Brandon Faison himself, to know that a guy with that much track record of success building up talent like that sees that in you. Same with like Nazir Adderley, same thing. You should be able to have enough confidence to know like if he sees it and he's seen some good players, like it's in there somewhere.
Yep.
So looking at kind of the training camp as a whole today, was there anything that like super surprised either of you?
Oh, just the fact that it was an hour and 15 minutes. That was probably it. That was probably it.
We're in, we're out.
Yeah, it was like, yeah, it was quick. Got their work in, but it was very just, I mean, what's the word I'm looking for? I mean, they were at point A to point B very quickly. So it was very well run. You can see the cadence, like you mentioned, in Brandon Staley. They would go from, individual drills to 7-on-7 to 11-on-11 to special teams to back to 11-on-11. And it was quick. So I don't have any huge surprises, I guess. But yeah, I was just impressed, I guess, with how they got through everything so quickly.
Surprises for me? No, I didn't see any surprises other than the time aspect. It's like, okay, that's it. It's already done. Okay, great. The running back situation didn't surprise me at all with who was the 2, who was the 3. I think I kind of figured that was how it was going to go at some point early on in the training camps. But it's so good for their standpoint that if Justin Jackson is indeed out for this entirety of these next 10 days due to COVID protocols, think about now the elevation and reps that both of these guys are getting, because it's going to be a huge camp battle between Roundtree and Kelly on who's going to secure that running back 3 spot. Do I think it puts Justin Jackson out of a job? And do I think that the Chargers need to go out and sign a veteran running back? No, I don't think it's that time to hit the emergency button right now. I know that this coaching staff really likes Justin Jackson. We as fans know what Justin Jackson can do when he's healthy. So if he comes back from this COVID protocol, he really has to make up a lot of work. I thought I didn't think so, but maybe there's something in here. I'm not sure.
Clearly, he's here.
Yeah.
Dictionary roulette
I'm still there in spirit.
I
Yeah, whatever. But the only issue for Justin Jackson is that he is going to have to make up a lot of work to get back up to speed, to keep his roster spot safe.
I was just thinking about it and looking at like the different positions that we're playing today, and you saw like 11-on-11s, you saw position drills. I think I saw more special teams plays than any other on the field.
Yeah, and they a lot of training camps, they'll design that. They'll put they'll do some like offensive defensive plays for the fans to like show off, but they'll do the more strategic stuff on the far field and put the special teams. They don't want to show too much. I've noticed that over the years of going. So
I mean, they better be doing
that's
as
kind of
many
like by
special
design
teams plays as they can. They better be doing as many special teams drills as possible.
Yeah,
make the mistakes now, and they did.
Yeah,
they did
plenty of them. So before we wrap up, though, I do want to what you brought up, Jake. We didn't bring up the running back, so I'm glad you brought him up. I personally, I think this is a huge deal for Justin Jackson. I think him being on the protocol, in my opinion, is a huge deal for him, not for the team hitting the panic button, like you said. But, I mean, it does not bode well for him, who is fighting for his spot. And Joshua Kelly, I know, struggled a lot, and a lot of fans are very sour on Joshua Kelly. But I think the organization is not sour on Joshua Kelly. They love the guy. I know it's a different coaching staff, but the organization as a whole loves him. His teammates love him. The work ethic he brings. He was, if you remember, last year, he was the biggest winner from training camp, was Joshua Kelly, how well he played. So the fact that he's now given these extra reps, these extra 10 days, essentially, I think really should be concerning for Justin Jackson and fans of Justin Jackson, because he's just not going to be out there. And last thing I'll say about them, the rotation, because I think a lot of people are curious, like, okay, well, who ran with the 1s and 2s? Obviously, Eckler's the main guy. They were really good about rotating. Like, there was really no telling
no idea
who was with who. Like, Roundtree was out there with the 1s sometimes. Kelly was out there with the 1s. And you had Austin Eckler with the 3s. Like, they were really all over the place in their running back pairings.
And it's not, I don't think it means that there isn't depth at the position. Like, I think it's a good thing to have 3 guys arguably vying for RB2.
Oh, 100%.
And Justin Jackson, we all love him, but this was the issue that everybody had, was that big asterisk of when healthy and could he get on the field. And I mean, this is a fluke thing. And I know this isn't like a physical health thing in terms of like he didn't break a bone or anything, but like we don't know the specifics of his COVID stuff, but it's just like,
it's still a health thing.
It's still something. And now he's behind the 8 ball again. And it's hard to catch up, especially when you get that thought to start creeping in about, is he going to be available? Is he going to be able to stay healthy all season? And then you have guys like a Larry Roundtree who like looks good. Like Larry Roundtree looked good.
Big.
Darius Bradwell, thick. Like, dude, I was like, man.
Bradwell looks more like a defensive lineman than a running back. I don't know. I remember we were joking.
Did he gain all that weight that Anthony Lynn criticized him for gaining last season?
We were literally joking at camp. We were literally joking at camp, Jake. I was like, is this the same guy that Anthony Lynn called out publicly on national television about like not losing weight and showing up to camp?
Me and Bradwell had the same diet over COVID.
I guess so. Bunch of Traeger smoked food, I guess.
Yes, although I'm sure Bradwell has a much better workout regimen than I do. Let's be real.
I don't know. We saw him out there, but no, he looked good. He was just big.
Yeah, totally. So like as a fullback, like sweet, love it.
Yeah.
So it was good first day. We saw a lot of folks like just kind of getting like the training wheels off. Start seeing kind of repetitions going. It was great seeing some of like the catches that we saw. There was a great route by Keenan Allen. We saw a great catch by Joe Reed. We saw Donald Parham catching things up the middle. We saw running backs catching things out of the backfield. Offensive line is looking like intact and looks like a functional unit versus a year ago, which was not a thing. And then this coaching staff, honestly, it was just nice to see organization top to bottom, and things were done with purpose. It looked like there was a lot less questions. It looked like there was a lot less wandering around, and things were done. Boom, boom, boom. You're in, you're out, and you're done. And the fact that it was only an hour and 15 minutes, we learned that's a good thing. If it goes 2 hours, 3 hours, like something's wrong. Well,
and last thing I'll say about that, and then I want to answer one question. We'll wrap up the show with that. But I've noticed in the many years, you can almost see how a practice is run, because everyone does 11-on-11, 7-on-7. It's like, that's standard. You call your plays, do that. But how are the individual drills run? Like, how much time is spent on the individual drills? And what are the individual drills? for those that like played football and stuff. And in the years past, there was a lot of time spent on, these fundamental, very basic drills that I don't think NFL players need to be spending 20 to 30 minutes on. We can see that all day. They were in individuals for 5 minutes?
Yeah, I saw one hula hoop thing and I was like, oh, that's new. Never seen that before.
Yeah.
And then that was probably it.
It was probably 5 minutes, essentially like stretching with your unit, maybe getting your hands loose if you're a receiver, getting your legs loose, going through the cones a little bit. But that was one thing I noticed too, is in years past, there was a lot of time spent with your particular unit doing things that were not necessarily bad drills, but at the NFL level, you don't need to spend 20, 30 minutes a day doing that to prep for games.
Well, Jake, you and I had talked about this. Remember when we talked to Drew Tranquil and he was saying how one of the things that like he understands now, but when they first started training camp or when they first started camp minis OTAs, he was saying Brandon Staley would like talk about like the minute details for like a week and they wouldn't even be able to touch a football.
Yeah.
And they were like, coach, would we be able to like touch a ball? He's like, before we even get to that, you got to get back to basics first. And so it looks like they got basics done and now they can actually work past that.
Yeah.
But like, I agree. You saw way more like live action than just like random simulation, hit a pad, hit a truck and go.
Like, basics should be done in OTA minicamp. You shouldn't be taking 20 minutes in training camp to hit a dummy, like to hit a sled in training camp when you're already 320 pounds and in the best athletic shape of your life. You shouldn't be doing that in training camp. It's for working out the kinks of the offensive defense.
And Jake, what did Drew Tranquil say when we were talking to him?
Ryan,
where he said, he was like, you should know the fundamentals. Like if you can't do fundamentals, you shouldn't be playing football. Like nobody should be having to teach you that when you get to the NFL.
Yeah.
And it sounds like Brandon Staley is kind of taking that same approach where it's like, guys, I'm not going to hold your hand the whole way.
Yeah.
Like if you're not going to step up and do your job before you get to me, like you're on your own.
Yeah. Like if you've heard Staley talk, he puts an onus on fundamentals, but he's not going to waste 3 practices teaching you fundamentals. Like you should know them already.
Yep.
And if you know them, you're going to be successful in this team. So last thing to wrap this up. This is an old question.
By the way, there's a ton of questions that we haven't got to on here.
Yeah, a ton. Sorry, the computer's kind of far away and down, so we're not seeing it. But
we'll fix this for next time.
Yeah, we got to ask, the quarterback.
The fact that we have to scroll through all the questions, this is impressive.
And this guy's
cornerback.
Cheers from Sweden, by the way. My guy, I'm Norwegian. Sorry, rivals, but that's okay if you're still in here. But how did Herbie look? Let's end with that. Let's end with how the quarterback, the rookie of the year, looked. I'll just let you start. How do you think he looks? It's really hard to say how a quarterback looks in the first day camp with no pads on because they're completing every pass because they let him complete the plays and whatnot.
Yep.
But what do you think he looked?
I saw a few incomplete passes. Some of that just comes with rust. We didn't see many like super deep down the field bombs that you'd probably accustomed to seeing, but that's probably, they're just trying to like get things started. But he looked as advertised. You know when Justin Herbert is throwing the football versus QB 2 and 3. It was pretty evident. And so things look crisp, things look great. He got to the places mostly where they should be. I think we said it. Wide receivers, I didn't see one drop ball.
Yeah, not one.
I think at least a part of that is because of Justin Herbert. The guy, he just has it going for him. I think he's in a really good place. I think he owns the offense. I think he's comfortable in his own skin.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think there's anything that's too big for him right now that he's trying to do too much. And for a second-year quarterback, that's a lot of times you see people kind of get not big-headed purposefully, but they feel like they have to do more than they really do. And so they'll try to take on more. And he just seems just like one of the guys. And I think that's going to bode well for him.
Oh, yeah. You can tell he's the leader of the team now. He's the leader of this organization, leader of this, city in regards to being the quarterback. And, I thought he looked good. Like you said, you missed a couple here and there. But what's been so refreshing to see with Justin Herbert and Jake, I'm sure you agree with this too, and I don't think he's the biggest – he's a gamer, right? Like he was not a winner in training camp last year. I know he's a rookie, but he was QB3 by a lot of people's accounts in training camp last year.
Say that too loud.
Yeah, he was. That's just what every beat reporter said. That's what the coaches said. Comes in and balls out in the game, and it's like, okay, well, this guy's a gamer. But still looks good in practice. But I think what's so important for people to know is even the mistakes he makes. So that the pass breakup by Michael Davis on the left sideline from where we were, it was still in a spot where, yes, it was a great play by the defender, but there was no chance for being intercepted. So it was a great play by the defender, but it wasn't a bad pass by Justin Herbert. And I think that's what is so refreshing about him as a quarterback. And I hate saying anything to be blasphemous to Phillip Rivers because I love the guy. He's an awesome human being, should be a Hall of Famer, one of the greatest charges of quarterbacks of all time. But in the last few years, he threw a lot of interceptable balls. And Herbert now is changing things to where even if it's a read where he's probably forcing it, he still throws it in a place that, yeah, might get broken up, might get complete, but it's usually not like in the chest of a defender. And so today he missed a few, and usually his misses were because he was stretching it a little far to outthrow the defender and hoping his receiver maybe made a chance on it, made a play on it, and they didn't. But overall, I thought he looked good. Yeah, love it.
Justin Herbert looked at as advertised. Any key takeaways that you had from him, Jake, on kind of the post-camp press conference, other than the fact that he didn't know that COVID protocols were a thing?
He knew.
I think he was just hyped up in general. You know, we didn't have fans in training camp last year. This is his first time as an NFL player experiencing this whole thing. So I think he was just hyped up just to get back into things. You know, he had talked about just they're going to be growing every single day. They can always be getting better, himself included. And yeah, I mean, he's just, you know, you look at that guy and it's like even what they said about him while he was in Oregon, it's like you couldn't really get like a full read on him. It's like, well, now he just looks like he looks happy. He looks re-energized. He looks like he's ready
the guy
to go in year 2. Yeah, it's like because I mean, hey, he's not playing behind anybody anymore right now. So it's his team now. So I think he has a lot more confidence than he may be exuding in his press conferences. But it's a great thing, and I think that you know, much like it is with quarterbacks his age, are there going to be mistakes? Are there going to be some shortcomings? Absolutely, there will be. But when you look at the mentality that Justin Herbert has made his career thus far, especially with what he did as a rookie last year, he has that mental fortitude to where if mistakes are made, he's going to be able to overcome it and he's going to come back better.
It was honestly, I think, Jake, you and I talked about it on our last episode on Chargers Unleashed, but like, it was just refreshing to see football again. Like, purgatory time is over. We get to start seeing helmets and pads and folks running full speed. And I mean,
people screaming for autographs.
Yeah, we got to see people throwing stuff at people for autographs. But I mean, we got to see Kenneth Murray in the new number 9 jersey. We got to see Strap Harris back. Drew Tranquil's out in practice. We got to see all kinds of things that we've been clamoring for. Asante Samuel Jr. on the field. Rashawn Slater. We got to see Corey Lindsley out there. Like, there's so many components of this team that have been so exciting, but all of them have been kind of individual, and to be able to kind of see them all take shape in one day. Granted, it's just one day, but I think just that feeling of seeing football is back. The purgatory is over. We're getting back to actually being able to enjoy this as fans, as a team. I think that was just something that was exciting for me to kind of see moving forward.
Oh, and seeing Rashawn Slater, Brian Bulaga, Iowa, Matt Filer. Didn't see Odoye Ibushi in this grouping.
I don't think I saw him.
But all of them together, Scott Questenberry, shout out, go UCLA Bruins, just walking off the field together. That was a good sighting.
It was you and I both looked at each other. We're like, that's arguably the most important 5 players in this entire team
Yeah.
walking over to get water.
Yeah.
And
everyone's kind of just like, oh, hi, like, oh, Slater, yeah.
Yep.
But,
Yep. And then someone did shout out Bulaga, Iowa, and you looked
Yeah.
over with a little wink. It was good.
there you go. Attaboy.
But yeah, so that is day 1 of training camp for the Chargers. Quick shout out, Brewery X.
Yes.
Thank you for hosting.
Here we are.
Great
In
spot.
the bellows of Brewery X, streaking delicious. Well, I'm out. You want to film it before we sign off here?
You close this out, I'll refill.
Yeah. So
quick shout out to my office for hosting. This is.
Are you in like a dungeon? Where are you? That's like what is that? A concrete background?
My friend, this is a guest room that has been in the process of being remodeled over the last couple of months. There used to be carpet in here. Now it's hardwood. So if you are hearing an echo from me, that's where it's reverberating from.
You sound beautiful.
Yeah, you sound great. I don't hear an echo. It looks like you're just like a concrete slab behind you. Is it cold in there? Is it nice and?
What did you do last night? Are you in jail?
Yeah. Is that a drunk tank?
That's blue paint on a wall. Blue.
I don't know. I don't see blue.
If I'm in a dungeon, this is the best looking dungeon I've ever seen.
Okay.
Don't let Jake's wife hear you call his house a dungeon.
Okay. All right. I guess I got to be there to see it. I don't know. Maybe
that's a great
camera...
tip. Don't.
Okay. I'll remember that. Okay. Well, Jake, thank you for jumping on with us to put up with our nonsense
from the dungeon.
As we are a couple pitchers deep at Brewery X, but we had a great time at Chargers Camp Day 1. Thank you to all the Bolt fan that came out. We met a lot of awesome people, guys and gals that we've talked to on Twitter. All of you for tuning in to this live episode. And this may sound blasphemous because I know everyone in here is probably Chargers fans, but we're now on our way to Rams camp to cover Rams camp.
We get to compare the Rams and the Chargers, both teams fighting for LA. We saw one, get to see the other. Thank you for everyone tuning in. Thanks for all the comments. Sorry we didn't get to all of them, but we're going to read all of them after we get off live. I promise you. But this has been a great time. Chargers fans, be excited. This team is back in action, ready to go. Brandon Staley has them going on all cylinders. Can't wait.
Yeah, and we will have representation from the LA Football Network at Chargers camp, the entire training camp. So make sure to tune in to LA Football Network, Chargers Unleashed. We've got you guys covered. Appreciate you all. Jake, enjoy the jail cell. Appreciate you.
Yes, thank you. I intend to.
Stay online when they end this. We'll catch up here.
Yeah.
We'll cheers you. Thank you all, guys. We'll talk to you.